everybody, this is James.
And Marco.
And Nabil.
And this is the Movie Pals Podcast, podcast number 145. Today we're going to be continuing our Coppola Corner with a review of the 1992 film Bram Stoker's Dracula, followed by a review of the new Creed film, or the newest Creed film, I guess. Who knows if there's going to be more, of Creed 3 that just came out last week. So without further ado, let's get into our Coppola Corner.
So when I was approached to do it, I think what fascinated me was the idea that I could make the classic Dracula based on the book much more scrupulously, which I tried to do, as well as make it with a young cast of what were then emerging stars in America, and then also give it a little aspect of the historical background of Vlad Tepes, which I knew about from reading history, and come up with a version of Dracula that was kind of my own take on this great story.
And if this is your first time joining us today, we do just want to do a friendly reminder that we will be spoiling the movie from the get-go if we do talk about anything. We try not to spoil it too much, obviously, but this movie's also been out for, I want to say, 30 years at this point, almost.
Yeah,
or close to, so unless you're very young, sorry. But we just kind of like to discuss these directly, but this is a special segment we've been doing for over a year at this point, following basically going over all of Francis Ford Coppola, the director's films from Dementia 13 all the way to his newest film, Megalopolis, when it does release sometime in the near future, for the sound of it. I think they just wrapped up filming this week, so I'm dating the podcast by saying that. Yeah.
I'm going to say it. We are the Francis Ford Coppola podcast. We got to say it every time.
No, and I don't expect any less from you, sir. Just to let you know. So, the last film that we did was Godfather 3, actually. Dedicated a entire episode of that. Thanks for all 20 of you for listening to that one. Just to let you know, it did not do well.
Still not that good of a film to others.
Had a feeling. I was like, you know what? This is more for us, but thank you for... Now, there's more than 20. Just to let you know. I'm obviously that a bit too low, but it's 25. No, I'm just kidding.
It's 25.
Since then, though, like we like to give you guys, we give you some facts between the two. Although the Coda version was a better version overall, like we talked about last time, the film itself did kind of put Coppola back on the map from the look of it here, because he started getting to do bigger budgeted films, kind of like he used to be able to, especially after the disastrous kind of, I guess now that we can say it, that we reviewed it, the 80s were not too kind to Francis Ford Coppola from the look of it. So, I mean, it's become kind of like a running joke that he's lost. I think he lost money on every movie except one movie during the 80s, right? So,
yeah, barely made a profit, but he made one.
Yeah, I wonder if in like nowadays, would somebody like that even get a chance again to make another movie? Like after like, hey, I made 8 movies in a row that bombed. Probably not. So,
no.
Just my thought process on it. But jumping in here. So Winona Ryder initially brought the script of Dracula, written by James V. Hart, to the attention of Coppola. The two had agreed to meet so they could clear the air, because as we talked about for The Godfather Part 3, there was production delays at the end of that film because Winona Ryder dropped out because of extreme exhaustion, et cetera, et cetera. So, she thought Coppola didn't like her, but according to Ryder, I never really thought he would read it. He was so consumed with Godfather Part 3. As I was leaving, I said, if you have a chance, read the script. He glanced down at it politely, but when he saw the word Dracula, his eyes lit up. It was one of his favorite stories from camp.
Coppola was attracted to the central element of the screenplay and said that he wanted portions of the picture to resemble an erotic dream. In the months leading up to its release, Hollywood insiders who had seen the movie felt Coppola's film was too odd, violent, and strange to succeed at the box office, and dubbed it Bonfire of the Vampires for the notorious 1990 box office bomb, The Bonfire of the Vanities. Due to delays and cost overruns in some of Coppola's previous projects, such as Apocalypse Now and One from the Heart, Coppola was determined to bring the film in on time and on budget. To accomplish this, he filmed on sound stages to avoid potential troubles caused by inclement weather.
Coppola chose to invest a significant amount of the budget in costumes in order to showcase the actors whom he considered the jewels of the feature. He had an artist storyboard the entire film in advance to carefully illustrate each planned shot a process which created around 1,000 images. He turned the drawings into a choppy animated film and added music, then spliced in scenes from the French version of Beauty and the Beast that Jean Cocteau directed in 1946, along with paintings by Gustave Klimt and other symbolist artists. He showed the animated film to his designers to give them an idea of the mood and theme he was aiming for.
That would have been wild, right? They were like, "The fuck is this, man?"
What are you looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Okay, cool, bro. They're like, "Fuck." Coppola also asked the set costume designers to simply bring him designs which were "quote unquote" weird. Weird became a code word for "let's not do formula," he later recalled. "Give me something that either comes from the research or that comes from your own nightmares." I gave them paintings and I gave them drawings, and I talked to them about how I thought the imagery could work.
Winona Ryder found the intensity of Oldman's acting style too much at times. The two fell out early in the filming process and had difficulty working together from then on. Coppola stated, and I quote, "They got along, and then one day they didn't. Absolutely didn't get along. None of us were privy to what had happened," end quote. Ryder has referred to the, quote, trauma, unquote, of the experience and said that she felt there was a danger while working with Oldman. However, she has also referred to her friction with Oldman as teen drama, stating, quote, "He, Gary Oldman, was going through a divorce, and I think I can say this because he's pretty open about it, but he's been sober for a long time now, and he's raised 3 kids, and he's a dream. He's a good friend of mine now," end quote.
Christian Slater was offered the role of Jonathan Harker, but he turned it down, a decision he later regretted. As for casting Keanu Reeves in the role, Coppola said of his casting choice, "We tried to get some kind of matinee idol for the part of Jonathan because it isn't such a great part. If we all were to go to the airport, Keanu is the one that the girls would just besiege." Coppola has stated that Reeves worked harder on his accent than most people realized. He tried so hard. That was the problem, actually. He wanted to do it perfectly, and in trying to do it perfectly, it came off as stilted. I tried to get him to relax with it and not do it so fastidiously. So maybe I wasn't as critical of him, but that's because I really like him personally so much. To this day, he's a prince in my eyes. That's so sweet.
That is nice. I mean, you could tell. Like, Keanu is.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about it. His accent's fucking terrible.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, if you're gonna have a blockbuster in the early '90s, who better to have than Keanu Reeves, right? So,
True.
That's what the
True. He
studio
was on
wanted.
fire at that point.
yep. Coppola was insistent that he did not want to use any kind of contemporary special effects techniques such as computer-generated imagery when making the movie. Instead, wishing to use antiquated effects techniques from the early history of cinema, which he felt would be more appropriate given that the film's period setting coincides with the origin of film. He initially hired a standard visual effects team, but when they told him that the things he wanted to achieve were impossible without using modern digital technology, Coppola disagreed and fired them, replacing them with his son Roman Coppola. As a result, all the visual effects seen in the film were achieved without the use of optical or computer-generated effects, but were created using on-set and in-camera methods.
The movie became a big box office hit, grossing over $82 million domestically, making it the 15th highest grossing film of the year. It fared even better out of the country, grossing over $133 million for a total worldwide gross of $215 million, almost $216, against a budget of $40 million, making it the 9th highest grossing film of the year worldwide. The film won an Academy Award for costume design, makeup, and sound editing.
Oh, guys. Well, I mean, just saying that, I mean, he's back, baby. He's making money 2 in a row.
He's here.
No,
He's
not
moved
known
on.
at this point. I don't know if he did 2 movies that made money 2 in a row. Just to let you know. So
Not for a long time.
yeah, he's back, baby. So with that being said, let's get into our review of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Count Dracula. anxiously expecting you.
So, Bram Stoker's Dracula, sitting currently on Rotten Tomatoes at a 77%. And the story goes, the centuries-old vampire Count Dracula comes to England to seduce his barrister Jonathan Harker's fiancée, Mina Murray, and inflict havoc in the foreign land. It's directed, of course, by the great Francis Ford Coppola, because we're doing our Coppola Corner. We're going through all his filmography. If you skip the intro, then, well, we're going to explain it again.
Yeah.
That's why.
Say
We just want to make sure you know. We're dedicated to our craft. It was written by James V. Hart, who did Hook in 1991 and Muppet Treasure Island in 1996, Contact in 1997. Based on the novel by Bram Stoker, it was released November 13th, 1992. And yes, I was alive at that time. So the budget for this one was 40.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Marco's,
We have
at the time.
finally reached an era where we're all bored
Yeah.
during a Francis Ford Coppola movie.
It's been a few
It
of
took
them,
a while.
but yeah, okay. You could say, yeah.
I was alive the entire time, but we all know.
Yeah, that's true though. My bad.
We saw this in the theaters too. We get it.
So again, the budget for this one's $40 million. Its box office gross, as Nabil stated before, was $215, almost $216 million. Once again, it stars Gary Oldman as the titular Count Dracula, Winona Ryder as Mina Harker, Anthony Hopkins as Professor Abraham Van Helsing, Keanu Reeves as Jonathan Harker, Richard E. Grant as Dr. Jack Seward, Carrie Elwes as Lord Arthur Holmwood, Billy Campbell as Quincy P. Morris, Sadie Frost as Lucy Westerna, the great Tom Waits as R.M. Renfield, Monica Bellucci as Dracula's bride in an early role. And if you don't know Monica Bellucci, she was in The Matrix, actually. Just want to throw that out there.
Reloaded and Revolutions. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
She was the Merovingian's wife. Anyway, we usually go into these by asking each other, what our history is with the movie and if we've seen it before. So that's kind of how we're going to start off this one. Going to go start off with BDJ here, RMC. James, have you seen this movie and what's your history with this movie?
Yeah, this movie actually, this is probably the Coppola film I've seen the most out of anyone now that I've been thinking about it. Like, as a kid, this movie really scared the shit out of me, big time. I remember the scenes with, for instance, Lucy coming back alive at one point, and just seeing the vampire or the fucking bats and shit at one point when Van Helsing's holding them off with the flames too and shit. Yeah, no, I've seen it a lot of times.
Sorry.
Yeah. I never saw it in theaters, obviously, because this came out 2 days after my birthday, obviously. And when I turned 4, I don't think I was like, let's see Dracula. So,
oh, man.
For the most part, though, I've seen it. I mean, I remember us it was a big. I remember this movie being a big deal, when it came out. I remember even the movie poster. I think they had it up at Hollywood Video the whole time, the one that just was a statue of a vampire bat or some shit, and it was blood coming out of it. I don't remember, but that's one of the posters I remember. And then, yeah, so this was I remember a lot of people, even when I was a kid, were talking about how scary it was and how it was. I mean, that's obviously why this made so much money. I remember this movie, obviously, so people went out and saw it. So I obviously saw it at a later date too, as older, and finally understood the whole premise of it. And I've seen the armor too, and it's at the Coppola Winery. So if you go on the Wikipedia page for this one, you can see it on there. And I've actually seen the armor in person. It's really fucking cool. Just to let you know. So.
I've actually been arrested for trying to steal it because would match my cape.
It fits me perfect.
That's another story. No, yeah, I read that too. That it's displayed at Coppola Winery. So
yeah, really cool. It's right across from. It's right across from his Tucker car. It's literally right there. It's
nice.
Boom boom.
That's cool.
Shit. Yep.
If y'all care to see some movie history, there you go. Good stuff, man. What about you, Nabil? What's your history with the movie? Have you seen it before this watch?
Well, my history isn't as prolific as James's, that's for sure. I've seen it a few times on but I've seen the made for TV cut. So I saw it on like TNT. I think it was on there many times. Yeah. I'd never seen it in its entirety, the full rated R version. So this was the first experience for me in this case. But I'd seen the
no
movie.
Idea. What?
Yeah. I never rented it, never saw it on HBO or anything. It was always just I'd watched the replays on TNT. So I've seen it through and through many times. But yeah. It's never like this. So it's definitely some things were edited out for TV for sure. I think that the seeing it in its entirety is much obviously the way you can see some films on TV and be like, I get the gist of it, but watching it the way it's supposed to be watched in this case, like you want to see the rated R version and really kind of get into everything that this film's about, because they omitted so many of the things that made the film, a really good horror movie. So,
a rated R Dracula film. Yeah. I would
say. Yeah. This is the first time that I've seen it in full.
Right on, man. Nabil also sent me a text. He actually saw the dubbed version of this one too, and I'm like, Nabil, it's already in English. What are you talking about?
Apparently it was all in Romanian, so I needed to, get the English version of that.
He's like, did you guys watch Dracula?
Oh man. My history with this movie is pretty similar to James's. I remember this movie being a big deal also because it's the for once it's supposed to be the closest quote unquote version to Bram Stoker's novel. And the first time anyone, I guess, had attempted to make it look as similar to the book as possible. And the fucking all-star cast, man. I forgot how many great actors were in this movie. There's a lot. And it's just incredible that, he was able to get all these people together to do this movie. So I remember seeing the trailers for this movie. It had TV spots, there were posters. I went to go see it at the old Cinema 6, which was, the old theater here in Fairfield before we got an Edwards. Nice. And I saw this movie for free because my cousin was one of the assistant managers there and let my family in for free. So we saw almost all the 90s blockbusters for free. And this was one of them. And I of course, when it came out, I was already, I was like 9 years old. Yeah. Yeah, I'm aging myself.
Put a one in front of it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I was 9 years old on the eve of turning 10. So went to go see this with family, and man, this movie was it was fucking epic then. I mean, it didn't make much sense to me at first, but like the imagery, it shows that Coppola really did put a lot of time into the imagery and the visuals, because those are what really got to me. Everything looked so freaking cool and looked so real, and it shows because he didn't use any computer graphics. It's all practical effects. And some of them may have not aged as well, but I would. This is the one that I've seen most, aside from the Godfather series from Francis Ford Coppola. I remember renting it too when it came out for rental. I think I owned a VHS copy at one point. So
I don't that's funny. Yeah. I don't think we ever owned this. It's one of those movies that we rented so many times. Like, why don't we just fucking buy this? You know what I mean? There's a couple movies like that I remember. I'm like, why don't we just buy it by now? Like, god damn, we've rented it 3 times.
Right? It was just so memorable. And then I know that The Simpsons did a spoof on it as well, where Mr. Burns plays Dracula. And I think that embedded the movie even more into my head. But that's my history with the movie. So now that we've gone all over that, let's talk about what we thought about the movie in a few sentences. Nabil, what did you think about this movie?
I enjoyed it. I honestly, it was weird at first watching the transition from, Dracula's origins per se to Ivan the Terrible 2, where he is in the quote unquote modern day setting that he was in. Some of the let me just put it like this: watching it in this way for the first time was very apparent to see like the stylistic choices that Coppola put in this movie, and it was weird for me at first, but about like halfway into it, I was like, okay, I kind of now am getting what he's trying to do. Like, and even like James, we kind of explained it at the beginning, like what his idea of the visual effects were and those transition shots and everything. Like, it all started to click for me. It was like, oh, he's like going for the time period, and that I think actually did help enhance the movie and help with that. So I enjoyed seeing those the different techniques he was using in the filmmaking itself. As far as the story is concerned, I think it's a really spot on and translation from the book into screen, and I like what he did over there. And some of the characters or the actors, specifically Anthony Hopkins, was having a great time, which I could just see that, and I thought it was really fun. Yeah, you can see that he's like enjoying himself, and the film to me like changed as soon as he was on screen. Like everything just was much different. But like the first half with Keanu and Gary Oldman was really the standout in those scenes. Just Keanu was, not that he was bad, he's just like, we talked about it, we'll talk more about his accent, but he just was he was much more stilted as a character, not just as an actor, but his character was just much more stilted. But
Dracula,
but I enjoyed
papers?
yeah, I mean that's what he was telling him. He was just, now you're done, now you own it. I'm like,
Did
okay.
he look like Nabil? Did he look like he was trying to refrain from saying "dude" after every line?
Or whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think overall it was very enjoyable. Enough, not too much with the, just enough of the blood and overly gory in some parts, but in a fun way, to be honest, like for what the type of horror film it is. Like there was a lot of great effects here. So
nice.
Yeah.
What about you, James? What did you think about this movie?
Yeah, no, this was great. I've always enjoyed this film, and this was a nice little refresher. I've seen this one even more recently, probably like 3-4 years ago, I think, to tell you the truth. So it's one of the ones that's still really fresh in my mind. And I gotta agree. It's really that all-star cast too. There's so many good like moments in this film. Van Helsing, easily my favorite character in this one. And it's funny, as a kid, I don't even think I knew that was Anthony Hopkins. Because always Anthony Hopkins is fucking Hannibal Lecter, I'm like, that's the same guy. As a kid, it's hard to tell when someone has like a wig on or whatever. I'm like, that can't be him. What are you talking about? So, yeah, it's just good, man. There's like a lot of shit going on in this movie. It's very adult. I'd say that much. There's like Marco said, there's no way as a kid I understood this. There's no way.
Yeah,
like there's so much shit going on. I was like, oh man, this is actually a little more complex than I thought. Like, okay, I remember the scary parts and shit because visually it's shot well, and I think because they chose not to use a lot of anything with CGI, it actually has kept it like fairly like. Yeah, some parts are dated, but for the most part, it still looks really good because of that. Because they chose not to add some shit that would date the film. So, yeah, I had a blast watching this. This was really fun. This is an easy watch. I kind of wish Coppola did more horror. Tell you the truth, I don't think he's up to this point. Had he done any horror? I mean, I guess Dementia 13 was a horror film.
Dementia 13, I think.
Yeah, but that was, I think, the last time.
That's like his first movie he just shot because they were like, go for it.
He really wanted to romanticize the story of Dracula and make it like tragic, not just horror, but tragic as well. Like you're afraid, but you also like sort of feel sympathy for the character.
I could see that.
So, yeah, no, good stuff, dude. This movie's iconic, man. It's so fucking iconic. I think it's still great. It holds up, man, so well. Aside from some of the practical effects looking, that like they didn't age too well, but the story, the art direction he chose, everything is just like iconic in this. Like the scene where Dracula turns into his like vampire form and like blows the flame onto the cross and shit. Like just Gary Oldman's look as Dracula. Like everyone,
dude, that
or at least
scene
almost
is the
everyone.
Scene I'm telling you about that scared the shit out of me as a kid. By the way, just let you know.
Yeah, when he shows up?
That's the scene
as Dracula.
Yeah, when he shows up as a dude, that scared the shit out of me as a kid. I was like, "What?"
No, yeah, dude, he's
Yeah.
freakishly looking, and it's just so iconic. He did like a modern definition of Dracula. Like everyone imagines, like a guy wearing a black cape and with the widow's peak and stuff, hair slicked back, and he did a much
Hey, chill out,
different,
man. Chill the
more
fuck out.
more grounded, version of Dracula, and it stood out. This movie helped
Mhm.
to modernize the modern vampire movie. Though I feel like The Lost Boys probably helped with that too. But still, like, this movie really like ingrained it on everyone's mind of what a vampire movie could be. The violence, I forgot like just how like gruesome and violent some of these scenes are. Like, I remember them, but then like seeing them again, because I hadn't seen this movie probably in like 10 to 15 years, man. It's been a while since I've seen this
Oh,
movie.
wow. Yeah,
But like
that's a bit.
watching, everything like happen, like how much blood and gore they have, and it's like, holy shit! Like, he went full into this, and I liked it. I like that Francis Ford Coppola like didn't hold back. It's a nice blend of this like horrific, tragic story of this character, that lost the love of his life and has been, walking the earth like in search of her again. So I think the performances were good. I mean, Keanu Reeves, yeah, his accent, we'll talk about it later, but I first I looked past it. He's a charming motherfucker, okay? And he's John Wick,
And-
okay, sir?
yeah.
He's John Wick. Anyway,
Truthfully, like, truth be told, like, he's not in the movie that much as opposed to the other
No, I
characters.
thought he was in way more, and then
I thought
watching
he
it
was
this time, I was like, oh
actually.
yeah,
I agree. I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, he's like gone for like most of the goddamn movie. So
yeah. Well, going into that, let's talk about the characters. James, what were your thoughts on Gary Oldman's Dracula? I know you touched on it a little bit with him freaking you out.
yeah, no,
His
I liked,
first appearance.
I love that first appearance actually, where he is. It's just weird when he meets Jonathan, right? And he's just doing shit in the background, and like, I liked
Right?
how you see his shadow moving around without him, and it's just like, what
Yeah,
the hell?
that's a good
Fuck,
effect.
This is creepy as fuck, man. And
Yeah.
there's even a scene I didn't realize the scene where he's like shaving Jonathan. Like, there's a practical effect. I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but the whole room is moving in like
Yeah.
slowly to make it feel like it's like getting really claustrophobic. And I never realized that until like this last watch. I was like, oh,
And
shit,
fun
everything's getting
fact, according
closer.
to
I was like,
IMDb, Gary Oldman was drunk as fuck during that scene.
was he? That makes okay.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
He was having some problems at the time. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I heard about his zucchini thing he did, and that's what it was probably
Yeah.
a joke with Winona Ryder feeling like.
yeah.
God,
She's like,
dude,
fuck this guy.
apparently that's what pissed off Winona Ryder, man. 'Cause
Yeah, I mean they're
they
cool
weren't
now,
getting-
which is fine because she was really young when she shot this, I think, right?
yeah,
She was 20,
They-
I think, or something.
they weren't
Anyway.
getting the reaction from her that they wanted, and so he did something extremely
and I'm
fucking
definitely-
inappropriate.
Oh yeah, no, I
So,
mean I understand,
yeah.
I get it, and nowadays I would not slide either, but yeah, character wise though, like my favorite hands down is Van Helsing. Anthony Hopkins just brings a like Nabil said earlier, he's just having a lot of fun in this movie, and you can tell, and he's.
Yeah.
God, it's something about Anthony Hopkins. His just charisma on screen. It's just
Yeah.
fantastic. So
Even playing crazy, like Van Helsing was crazy in this film. Like but he knows what he's
Yes.
doing, but he's also
Yeah.
just seems like psychotic. Like,
dude,
can
I
you
love
trust
the
him?
scene where they're just killing the shit out of Lucy, and then they just shoots directly at him eating the rawest piece of fucking meat you could find. And he's just
Dude,
like, yeah.
right?
Right next to the next shot. Yeah.
Like it doesn't even phase
He's-
him. He's like, yeah, this is fucking normal. So
Mm-hmm.
He's just this like grizzled, experienced like person that's just seen some shit, and it's like everything just rolls off his back. And I think it helps out that he definitely changes the dynamic of the movie, and it like, not that it was boring or anything, but it's just like like Nabil said, he was so much into the role and so much into the movie that like it kind of makes you get even more into the movie and be like, what's Van Helsing gonna do next? So
Yep.
true.
what
No, I agree.
Yeah, I know we were kind of anticipating talking about Keanu Reeves as Jonathan and his fucking accent. Nabil, how did you feel about Keanu Reeves as Jonathan?
It's not as bad as I remember it watching it on TV. I'll say that much. The accent is terrible. Like, he can't pull an English accent for the life of him, and he tried. But it didn't ruin the film for me. And I thought, but remembering it watching as a kid, I was like, what is he doing? Is this the guy from like fucking the
Point Break?
Bill and Ted?
Point Break?
What is he doing here? Yeah. So like seeing him, it was kind of weird, but to be honest, it was more, and I know this, I feel like it's more just a character too, because of all the people that you see in this film, he is the stiff upper lip kind of, snooty Englishman, that he's, and I think that's part of that role. But he just like, especially like when he was in Dracula's castle interacting with between him and Gary Oldman, like Gary Oldman dominating the scene, and he just kind of was there speaking.
But I think him being uncomfortable in the role kind of helped the feeling in the room, because he's supposed to feel like sort of uncomfortable with Dracula around. I'm not 100% defending his his crappy acting in the movie, but I think it still helped like showcase Dracula and how like dominating he was, and how like seductive Dracula can be in manipulating you to do like his bidding and shit. So
and he was, during some of the succubus scenes, he was a bit more animated, rightfully so, I guess, so based off the situation. And then like him escaping the castle. Yeah, that's true. And him escaping the castle, like there was there was action, he was good there. I will ask,
he doesn't talk to Bill.
This is, yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. When he doesn't have to actually do the acting part of it, the voices.
You're like this guy
apparently he was. You're like, apparently he regretted agreeing to do the film too, because not because it was challenging to a point, but he was coming off of like just doing movie after movie after movie. He had done like Bill and Ted 1, he did Point Break, he did Bill and Ted's. Yeah, he was super exhausted. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey 2 and like 2 other movies, and it's like he was just fucking tired of just working like back to back to back. But
what were you saying though, Nabil? Sorry for cutting you off.
No, I was going to ask you guys, because I got a little confused at this part, which is typical with me in any film. But when he comes back and marries Mina, he's like, has he aged? Is that why is he so gray? And I don't understand why he looks just so much older.
It's like it's taking the life out of him. That's why, like being there. It hasn't been that long. It's just like someone, like, I mean, just not trying to get like
just
if you've seen God, supposedly, like your hair turns white, like that happens to Moses too. It's almost like that with him.
Okay,
like, it's just he was there so long that it was just taxing on him and his health. His hair went gray. Yeah,
and I thought since they were feeding off of him and feeding off of his blood to keep him weak, that took life out of him as well too, and kind of aged him up. The stress on his body, and shit.
I just assume it's just like
because I was like, it was a few months, like 6 months or something, right before he actually came back.
Yeah, he's gone a while. Yeah,
Nabil, anything on any other characters that kind of stood out for you or that you wanted to comment on?
I'm gonna say so earlier to James's point about Dracula and the whole love story aspect of it, and him pining for the person that he lost. I believe that from Dracula's point of view, but when it came to Mina's side, where she was like longing for him, and nothing to do with the acting or anything. It's really just like the character. I didn't feel the same kind of like. It didn't seem as compelling to me that she was also longing for him as much. Like, and that could have been maybe because of the relationship between Oldman and Ryder, but I feel that didn't just sell it to me as much. Like she was wanting to be with him and she needed to be with him. Like, I mean, even like with Lucy and having her yearning for him because she was under his spell, I believe that more than what Ryder was Mina was going through and trying to say, that for some reason I want to be with him and I love him and all this. Like, it didn't feel as, I don't know, organic or something to me. I don't know, that side of it I didn't connect with as much as I did when I would see Dracula wanting to be with her. And I don't know if you guys agree with it or not, but I thought that was a bit odd for me.
That makes sense, but I kind of took that as her being conflicted, because at the same time she was still thinking of Jonathan in the back of her head, because it was her fiance, they were going to get married. So it was the struggle of her realizing that she was falling for Dracula as well, because it's young Gary Oldman in his prime, and seductive motherfucker.
Luscious hair.
Um,
Luscious hair.
yeah,
The hair
but it's
and the funky glasses.
Yeah, he had the
Those
Morpheus
fucking
glasses before they were popular, bro.
Yeah, right. His dapper
Ahead of his
suits,
time.
but he had been like seducing this whole time, so she was sort of like conflicted, and that's kind of how I saw it, where she was just on the fence between these two guys, or the man she was set to marry, and then someone who's awakening like these lustful feelings in her, and showing her other ways to love and stuff, and she was technically like a reincarnation of his
Right.
love,
His
Elizabetha.
love,
So
yeah.
yeah, so it was maybe like she was probably like getting like these memories of a like past life or something. So I was able to forgive it for that, because I think like the rest of her performance is pretty good.
Yeah, I think like everything else was fine. I think just more that central plot of the love story aspect. It seemed to me it felt very one sided. Even like when she wanted to be turned, I wasn't fully sold on like her feeling like she was there yet. Like he had convinced her
Really?
enough. So, and I don't know if there was like maybe there's more scenes that were omitted, or maybe I just wasn't understanding her connection in the same way because of the confliction. But she didn't sell it enough for me, I guess. So
I think it's with Marco's right though. It's like she's slow. I think she's even like coming under his spell a little bit, to a point like where she can't resist him anymore. But I think there's a lot of inner turmoil that she has, and it shows more near the end, I would say. But yeah, it does seem like it's a pretty quick flip for her. But I think there's like a passage of time that we don't realize is going on too. Like it's been going on for a while. So
well, since we're on plot points and the love story, in addition to that, one of the things that kind of stood out for me, from the plot, was like Van Helsing seemed to just kind of show up and sort of like say, this is what we got to do, to stop the vampire. But for some reason, like I remembered Van Helsing, like I seem to remember there was a time where he like would explain to people what a vampire is, but it didn't really seem like he did that. James, did you feel that way about the plot, where he just sort of like just shows up and starts like saying, "Hey, we're gonna do all this."
He's narrating the whole fucking thing too. So
yeah,
right. He does bring up things about the vampires, like it's
not
like like. And he says something like, it's a common mistake that they can't walk around the light or some shit. They're just weakened or something like that. No, I didn't see that for the point of that. I mean, it's fine. Plot wise, I thought it worked. Everything. I thought it was pretty tight. To tell you the truth, everything worked really well. So
yeah, that was the only thing I was kind of like looking at. It's like everyone's standing around like to Van Helsing, like confused. Like Richard E. Grant, Cary Elwes, all their characters are just like, okay,
I like them too,
Van Helsing showed up. He just wants to
do
all this weird shit.
Yeah.
I like that they were
roll with it too. Yeah, they were. I mean, to a point, until they see fucking Lucy, they're like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we will do that.
Yeah, that's when they finally see, like, all right, you know what? We're doing whatever this fucking guy says, no matter what.
Sees the goddamn fangs on her. They're like, all right, what do we need to do? So, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, just something I noticed. But yeah, aside from that, I think the plot pretty much works. I think the pacing is pretty well. Thoughts on the cinematography or the music, Nabil? How did you feel about the way Coppola handled that?
I mean, again, to my point earlier, the shots were very practical. I think it was great that he used his son. I think it was the right decision, because it took me a while to get used to it, for sure. Because I was like, "What the hell are we doing this? Like, why are these shots set up this way?" But then I started realizing like he's trying to set it into the time period of the film, because, as we kind of mentioned in our intro, that he was trying to portray it as the time that cinema started, which is around the time that this film takes place. So it was easy to kind of adapt, or it made sense to adapt some of those early on tropes to it. And I like that. I like the we talked about the shadow effect, the room closing in. These are all camera tricks. The depth. I mean, the infamous depth perception of the train going by, and then there's like a big 20-foot book that just to kind of show the offset of the landscape.
I like that scene actually. I know what you're talking about, Bill, and I thought of it the same thing. I was like, it's a nice shot. Yeah,
there's a lot of very well, and this kind of goes back to like our history of watching Coppola. When he has a vision, surprising enough, he stayed on budget for this film. But when he has a vision, he knows how to execute it. Like, he has his frame of reference. He knows what he wants to do, and he has it. And that's what makes him a good director, is that he can put that together and really translate that on the screen. And so, those close-up shots that are done so well, where you can feel the eeriness. I mean, like, Marco, we were talking about, like, the werewolf scene, like, that was scary, and you don't really see much of the werewolf, but when you do, it's like petrifying, and it's in the close-up view, and the music comes on, and like, you don't know what's going on with Toulouse, and like, all this stuff is a lot of quick cut shots, and at the same time, just enough for you to linger on to feel like you're in that moment, and then he's giving you the effect that he wants you to feel. So, I mean, from a cinematic, it was great. Yeah.
What about you, James? Anything that stood out to you, or any thoughts on the cinematography or music?
No, I mean, I think we've pretty much nailed it on the head for everything else here right now.
Yeah. I personally like
shots. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I personally like the fact that it was primarily shot on sound stages, like, rather than on locations.
Yeah, a lot of it.
But it doesn't feel that way. Like, it feels like the way it was shot was just done so well to kind of mask that. And like, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, fuck, man, this was on sound stages, dude.
Except for the end.
Incredible, dude.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like Nabil said, they do use a lot of the kind of the trickery, I guess, of like old cinema, which is cool. But for me personally, I could tell, but it's not super noticeable though. Even like the scene where they're in like the snow and that's like a soundstage. So
that's a soundstage, yeah.
It's insane.
Which is crazy.
Lastly, the form changes of Dracula, because like, I didn't know that in the book he can change like to various forms and shit like that. So it was kind of cool to see that implemented in this movie, and see like him turn into a wolf, turn into like a bunch of rats, and
that's a good scene.
Really change his form and stuff, and made him this like horrific being. Then he turns into mist. It's like, oh shit, I didn't know all these fucking things, and it's kind of cool to see that implemented in the movie. But going on that, James, did this feel like a Coppola film to you?
Yeah, no, definitely. This is a return to form, I think, finally. Especially, I mean, I think Godfather 3 is a return to form, to tell you the truth, but this was a continuation of it, which is nice to see back to back success for him. Because I mean, after this, I don't know if he actually has any more success after this. This might be the last one, to tell you the truth.
I think it's like modest success.
Maybe some modest one.
Yeah,
I
think there's one. Yeah, there's one. The Rainmaker's in there.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if Jack made any money, but yeah. So for the most part, I think it's just one of those movies that I think this is one of his better ones, to tell you the truth. So.
Mm-hmm. What about for you, Nabil? Did it feel like a Francis Ford Coppola film to you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did. I will say, from the films that we've seen so far, it's the last scene, the fighting, as much as I enjoyed what they were doing, like cutting off arms, stabbing in the neck, all the stuff that was happening was really cool. There's a lot of quick shots. It felt very like quick moving over there, and that I was trying, as I was watching the scene, because I played it back a couple of times to see if it was just me, but I don't think that Coppola has done a lot of like full on action like that in that sense from many of his other films. Like, they were always like slower paced fights or distant kind of shooting or something like that.
I mean, like brawls, I guess, with like
like the small brawl. Yeah. So I'm watching this and I'm like, that scene felt a little off. That everything just happened so quick for me, I think, and so that part I think was a bit tossed to the side. But as a film, yeah, this is definitely a solid entry for Coppola.
I think going in knowing that it's a Francis Ford Coppola movie, I think that it feels like one. But for the longest time, I didn't know that it was a Francis Ford Coppola movie. So like, in a way, yes, it feels like a Coppola movie to me. But also like the disbelief of like, man, he did fucking Bram Stoker's Dracula. Also, kind of in a weird way, it makes it feel like, man, I still can't believe it, because it's such a good movie. And like Nabil said, he hasn't done like a full horror thriller movie in like a really long time. So it just sort of feels like it's good that he went like a little bit out of his element from, these character driven movies, dramas, to do something like this. So that being said, I know we talked a lot about this movie, but I feel like it's one of his strongest and one of his best, especially like because it deviates from his, normal storytelling. Let's go into our rating, where we rate this movie 1 out of 5 stars, with 5 being the best. We'll start again with our MC, James. What do you rate this movie out of 5 stars, and would you recommend it?
Yeah, no, highly recommend this one. I give this one a 4 out of 5.
Right on. What about you, Nabil?
Yeah, I also give it a 4 out of 5.
Well, slightly higher than you guys. I give this one 4.5 stars, and I would hands down recommend it. That is our review of Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Let's stop here for a moment to let you all know about Newsly. Newsly is an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android. It picks up the most trending articles on the web on topics you choose at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time ever, the entire web becomes listenable, all in one place. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, tech, business, science, Bitcoin, or heck, even the Kardashians. Newsly will find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud. They even have digital radio. Did we mention they also have podcasts from over 80 countries? Well, they do, and guess what? The Movie Pals podcast is there too. I started using Newsly as my default podcast player, and I can't think of ever going back. Download and use Newsly for free now from www.newsly.me or from the link in our description. And make sure to use our promo code TMPALS, that's TMPALS, to receive a 1-month free premium subscription. Newsly, stop scrolling and start listening. Thank you, Marco. Let's move on now to our main review of Creed 3.
The higher you get, the harder it gets. That's life.
Because this is a war. It's a fight, it's a battle.
So, how long have you known each other?
We was like brothers.
One day you came back. The past came back too.
There may have been a time when Damien had your back,
No friends in the industry.
but that's not what he's doing now.
Creed 3, currently sitting at a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Adonis has been thriving in both his career and family life, but when a childhood friend and former boxing prodigy resurfaces, the face-off is more than just a fight. This is the directorial debut for Michael B. Jordan. Its screenplay was by Keenan Coogler, who also, sadly enough, did Space Jam: A New Legacy in 2021, as well as Zach Baylin, who did Zach Baylin, who did King Richard in 2021. The story is also by Keenan Coogler and Zach Baylin, as well as Ryan Coogler, who's done a number of films that actually Michael B. Jordan's been in as well. Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panther, Creed 2, and Wakanda Forever.
I think he's actually been in every one of those movies.
Every single one of those films, yes.
Yeah. Jesus. Okay.
This film was released only in theaters as of March 3rd, and it stars Michael B. Jordan returning as Adonis Donnie Creed, Tessa Thompson back as Bianca Taylor, Jonathan Majors as Damian Dame Anderson, Wood Harris as Tony Little Duke Evers, Florian Montenot as Victor Drago, Felicia Rashad as Mary Ann Creed, and Tony Bellew as Pretty Ricky Conlon. So this time we're going to start with you, Marco. Let's get some of your thoughts or initial impressions on this movie.
I liked it, man. I thought it was a pretty good continuation of the story. I liked the direction Michael B. Jordan took this movie. I liked that it had elements from the past, even Rocky franchise, and the themes that he brought into it. It's like almost like an inverted Rocky 1 story, and I liked that. And it was, filmed very well for a first time director. I think he the pacing was done pretty well in it. So yeah, man, it's an enjoyable, at times fun, at times dramatic film.
All right, and James, what about you? What are your initial thoughts on the film?
I liked it too. I didn't love it. I thought it was good. I think out of the three, it's probably the weakest of the Creed films. But I think as a movie itself, it was still enjoyable. I do like that Michael B. Jordan brought a lot of his own kind of personal experiences into this. There's a lot of anime inspired things in here, especially during the fight scenes, which were kind of cool. Yeah, it's very by the numbers though. It's very predictable. It's one of those movies that you watch that trailer, you already know what's going to happen. But I liked it. It was fun. I saw it a good time, especially I saw it in IMAX. Fight scenes were all shot in IMAX. It looked good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with James' opinion as well. It was an enjoyable film. I don't think it was the strongest entry of the three films of the Creed trilogy, but it did have its own redeeming elements. Definitely, Michael B. Jordan brought his own style to the film. He's a big anime fan, and so there's definitely some anime homages, we'll say, some of the scenes. But it was fun. I like to kind of see that different kind of style. The fighting scenes were good. I feel like the other films had a stronger. I don't know. It was a little off for me in some of the fighting scenes. I didn't feel as enthralled, except for one scene at the end. But for the most part, it was an enjoyable film. So, good boxing film. You can't. It's really hard to mess up a boxing film. I'll say that much. So, I think he did good there. But speaking of Michael B. Jordan, James, so what did you think about him being his first time in the director's chair?
It worked. And I think like your quote, like you can't really mess up a boxing film. It is hard to mess up a boxing film, right? There's a certain recipe to it all, right? You know, there's some struggle. There's some, there's a montage. There's ultimately the fight at the end. So it's nothing. Once again, not too complex, but I think he did a good job. Seems like he has an eye for it too. I don't know if this is something he wants to do more or. I know it's incredibly hard to direct and also be in the movie as the main character.
Film, yeah.
Not many people do that. So, I think he did a really good job. I think, I'm assuming he had a lot of help from Ryan Coogler, like, because they're all executive producers too.
Yeah, I feel like he must have had some kind of input with it because obviously he also did the
that happens a lot
script
with
it too. So.
Yeah, with first time directors, because I mean he had no. Yeah, he had no, he didn't write this or anything, so it was written by other people, which I think is smart that he didn't try to put on too many hats here. Yeah, so and I think it worked that he did this, and I'm assuming they used same cinematographer for before, so that's why it looks really good too. But no, I liked it. I think he did a really good job. So I look forward to if he maybe gets something else other than a sports movie, like I don't know, something dramatic. I think he'd probably do pretty well. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And do you have some thoughts on that as well, Marco?
No, pretty much agree with James. I think he did, pretty good. There, he can probably work a little bit on filming some of the action and making it feel a little bit more impactful. And they weren't lame, they weren't bad. It just
I agree.
In some of the fights, though filmed very well. And this is that I've been watching, some of the Rocky movies from start to finish. Some of the fights were just missing a little bit of the oomph to it, like
that's yeah. You know what? I know what you mean, Marco. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I need a little more.
Yeah, when you're getting hit, like I need to feel it when you're getting hit. Like there are some moments in the previous movies where people are getting hit, and I'm just like, holy shit, he's freaking taking.
Especially in that first film, I felt like Ryan Coogler really was able to capture some of the dramatic intensity of the fight, and there was a little bit.
Didn't he really get knocked out in the first movie? Right?
He did, yeah.
I think Pretty Ricky Conlon knocked him out, like for real. Mm-hmm. Like they filmed the shot and he actually got him. He just lands out cold too. It's like holy shit. So
damn. Or even like in the second one when he's fighting Drago, like it's menacing. You can feel those hits too, man. Like dude hits like his dad. So, but I mean, I think that's something he can fix and tweak along the way and pick what worked and what didn't work. So that's I'm able to forgive it a little bit for being a first time director.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I feel that. I don't want to spoil it. We'll talk about it more in the spoiler section, but there is a scene at the end where there's a much more. Donnie and Dame are both fighting each other, and it's a very isolated scene where it's just the two of them in the ring. And the feeling of that fight was really cool. That's where I feel like his style was really kind of came out in that scene, and I enjoyed that segment. I feel like that was, as far as compared to the other fighting scenes in this film, like that one was the most unique and brought something different, and that really was a cool thing to add to the movie. So I enjoyed that, and maybe if he was given the opportunity, or maybe if he felt more comfortable to do more of that, that would be great. But yeah, as far as like the intensity from the other two films prior, like that, it wasn't at the same level. So he was good when he brought his own style, but when he was trying to kind of do something by the books, like the opening fight in the movie, that didn't feel the same. So I agree with you guys there. Speaking of the new character, as well, we have Jonathan Majors bringing in the new character Damian Anderson. Marco, what do you think about Jonathan Majors? What do you think about this character? Do you feel like it brought something new to this, or was it kind of the same old trope with a lot of these other boxing films where you got the underdog coming trying to step up again? How did you feel about Dame?
Oh, well, I think Jonathan Majors is a scene stealer. I think he's easily the strongest performer of the entire movie. I'm a huge Jonathan Majors fan. So it's obviously, my opinion is just a little biased, fair warning, but I felt the character of Dame was a reversed, inverted Rocky. He was the underdog. He was the one with no shot. He was old, and all he was asking is for a shot. But, the way he was approaching it was just a little bit, shady, because he felt, jaded, due to the past that he shared with Donnie and the events that unraveled. And it sucks, because you're like, man, this guy's being a dick, but at the same time, you kind of like sympathize and with him because of all the stuff he's been through. And it's in the trailer, he's coming out from prison, and he's been in prison for a while, and it's like basically his entire life is passed him by and shit. So it's I see this movie kind of more like a story of Dame, just as much as it is a story of a continuation of Donnie's story. And I kind of like that. In fact, I think at some points the character of Donnie suffers a little bit because they want to give more light to Dame and his story, but I'm okay with that, because then that makes him more of an interesting villain. So, or an antagonist. He's not really a villain. He's, more of like anti-hero.
You don't really hate him to an extent.
Yeah.
He does some pretty fucked up shit, right?
Well, he does.
He does some shady things, yeah. But I mean, you don't hate him as a villain.
Prison photo that was like, okay, all right.
Oh,
it was crazy that Mike Tyson was. Clubber Lang. Dame is in this movie. No, I agree for the most part with Marco. Jonathan Majors kills it, man. He's a really good actor. He really gets into his roles. And God, man, these guys are beyond fucking jacked too. By the way, in this movie, it's funny they really hold back from showing Dame like without his shirt until his first fight. Like, I noticed that, just to show you off. Like, if you don't want him, like, because like if you spar with that guy, I'd be like, wait a minute, what the fuck? But yeah, no, he's a chip on the shoulder. My only issue is I think the plot moves way too fast.
Agreed.
Yeah, like I wanted more of that drama. Like, it's like, I don't know if this is a spoiler. Is this a spoiler? This is kind of a spoiler.
We can talk a little bit about it without going into detail.
Yeah, without like going into it. Like, after something happens, Dame like rises in fame, right? And I felt like I needed more of that, of like his eventual, to really like not like him, right? Because like, yeah, for the most part, we get why, but I also feel like we should have focused a little bit more on the past scenes if we're going to do so much flashbacks.
Agreed.
And I wanted more fighting between Donnie and Dame before the ring, obviously.
It seemed to all escalate very quickly. Yeah.
I agree, James. It felt like everything was too tight. I saw this movie with my brother, and we're talking about it, that this movie, because it's like well under 2 hours. It's like an hour.
It's only like an hour and
40.
Minutes.
Yeah.
40
if one of the few times you could use another 20 minutes to a film.
Exactly. And I think that's like the first director type of fear, where he probably didn't want to take on too much for fear of, like, I don't know, probably not handling it too well. I'm hoping that he can tweak that later on. But yeah, I agree on that, James. It felt like they should have focused a little bit more on that and added more anticipation to it and more.
Yeah, no. And then, because like, yeah, don't get me wrong, we get the training montage, and then we get like, and then it just goes right into the fight. I'm like, oh shit, like, that's it? Like, I literally was like looking at my watch, it's like, yo, there's only like 10 minutes left of this fucking movie. Like, at this point, like, yikes. So Yeah, no, I thought it moved a little too quick, and truthfully, I'll talk about it in the sports section. I think it wraps up a little too quick. Like I wanted a little more out of that last fight.
Let's
I
sit
don't
with it a little bit
actually.
more. Yeah.
I don't like. Okay, spoiler. I'll talk about it when we get spoilers.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you guys 100%. That was one of my bigger critiques of the film, is that he does a really good job at the beginning with everybody, even with Dame's mom, like the tension that they have over the up
Donnie's
until to Donnie's mom. Sorry, yes, up until they get to having to deal with the event that happens where Donnie and Dame end up, building up on their tension. But I feel that from that point on, everything just kind of trickles pretty quickly on, and there you just are not given the benefit of seeing how long of their history has been and what the pain is between them. You kind of, it's all kind of an exposition why somebody feels the way they feel, and that's fine. But I would have liked to have seen that come up more organically, the build up to the inevitable big finish of the fight. Even like there's a scene where there's Donnie's in a TV show, or whatever, a sports talk show, and one of the announcer or the host is saying that Dame's basically been talking a bunch of crap on him, and I would have liked to actually see those, something, where he's doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I was like, I would have liked to see some of that. This is giving me the fucking Thor, fucking God and Thunder, where they're like,
God
you kill all
killers.
those gods.
Yeah.
Can I see some of those other than the one? Sounds like that would have been fun.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
and not to compare it, but like Rocky 3, where you see Clubber Lang actually talking mess, like on like news
Dude,
channels.
he
and
doesn't do
stuff, and
anything
in
but
person.
talk mess, and then push
Right?
Mickey, of course, as well, and kill him. But I mean,
Well, yeah.
he was already having heart problems. Okay, my heart's going out, Rocco. Sorry.
He fought on setups. Sorry.
Get on my way, fool! And he just pushes him. Sir.
Yeah.
Sorry, one of my favorite.
You don't
Rocky
find
movies.
a real
Tiger
man.
Baby. Let's go.
Sorry.
It's true. It's true, though. I mean, we didn't get to see a lot of that. That's some of the fun part of it.
We get that party or whatever the
We
fuck
get a
that is,
taste
the
of it,
celebration
yeah.
scene, and that's like when he definitely turns, like he turns heel right there.
Mhm.
Like, and I was like, that kind of happened out of nowhere. Like, I get it, we're building up to that, but I was like, we could have kind of like, did that have to be the same night? That could have been like a visit the next day kind of thing. Like, I was like,
Right.
that's when I
Agreed.
was like in the theaters. I was like, this
things
is
breathe.
moving really fucking fast right now. Like,
Yeah,
damn,
they're
he's
just
like,
trying
he's
to
gonna
build
like.
the
Then he
momentum.
figures out he wants to fight him the next day. I'm like, damn, dude, let it breathe. Like, it should have been after more like shit talking or more like showing up, or you know what I mean, something. It was missing like you guys said, another 20 minutes to let like more of the plot breathe would have been probably like, I don't know, or was it cut down? Do you think there was maybe more? I don't know.
Maybe, but they should have at least showed Dame fight one more other contender, before fighting, Donnie, and then continue to talk smack after that fight,
Yeah.
and then calling him out.
Yeah, that would have
I
worked
don't
too. Or maybe even like a fight before the fight with the main dude, right?
Yeah.
Hispanic guy, I forgot his name, sorry. No, like maybe like something before when they were sparring, like already do some fucked up shit and like lead it up to that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I agree though.
Yeah.
Just missing something.
And just to kind of talk a little bit too about, I know we touched on the cinematography aspect of it and just how the scenes were shot, but was there anything that really stood out to you, Marco, in regards to just, was there a specific scene that you really felt like spoke to you, or I know I kind of called out them boxing separately, but anything else really pique your interest or stand out?
Not really a scene, but sort of the story behind Donnie and Dame and their shared brotherhood in their youth. I think that at least that was explored pretty well, which is why, like, kind of like what James is saying, I wish like more of the conflict would have been emphasized in the future, because then it would have hit a little bit
agree.
harder. Because he did a good job at showing that these guys were close, that they were brothers. You see, Dame give money to Donnie earlier in the movie and stuff, and take care of him, watch out for him and stuff, and you see their camaraderie and the fact that they had each other's backs. So that aspect I felt was handled like really well. Because it makes it does make their conflict kind of hit you a little bit, but like kind of wish like it would have hit you even a little harder, just kind of like
Yeah.
squeeze you a little bit in the heart and just be like, damn, this is fucking rough. But that's kind of what really stood out for me.
Yeah, just a little more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe there'll be a director's cut in the future.
Hopefully.
Maybe.
So with this kind of being new for him to direct and the film being a cap off, I guess, to a trilogy, kind of, even though there's like 9 movies now. James, do you feel like this was more of a Creed movie, or did you feel like this was even more of a Rocky movie per se? I don't want to like necessarily say it's a spoiler, but yeah, it's
no, there's no
Creed
Rocky
movie.
in here. I mean, he's also having like a pretty public spat with everybody about the Rocky things, you know.
The same producer he's always had a spat with, I guess, technically, but yeah,
he's hated that guy for fucking years. I think Sylvester Stallone. I mean, side story, like, has fully regretted selling the rights to these movies because, like,
but he's made
listed
like
as a producer on here.
He's made a lot of movie.
Yeah, but I think he wanted to go a different direction too, and I think he didn't even. I don't know. It's weird. Sly, he's an older guy. I get it.
I think
that's why he's almost redoing all his other ones. So.
Yeah, I think it started to feel like a Rocky movie during the training montage because they actually start to play some of the classic music, and that's kind of where
and then they do it near the end. But
he even runs up
for me personally, it's more of a Creed movie. It's kind of setting its own path. I would say it's not
right.
falling too well into, like, you know, most of them have some kind of Rocky past. I mean, yeah, Drago's son's in it, but Drago's not in it, right? So, it's just one of those things. But for the most part, for me, it felt more like its own thing for the most part. So you get to see.
Do you feel
where
like
Donnie's come to, basically?
Do you feel like it could have used Rocky in this film at all, or did it benefit without him?
Oh, you know me, shit, yeah, always, man. Roky's one of the most legendary screen characters, but I think it's one of those things. Once again, it's also because he just has this huge fucking dude. God, look it up. Sly Stone has said he's never gonna watch this movie too. It's like he has nothing against Michael B. Jordan.
Watch the film. Yeah.
Again,
the sad part is this plot would have specifically spoken to Rocky, and he definitely could have given.
That's what I was
Donnie
thinking too. I mean, shit, we're not spoilers yet. I'm gonna tap on that too for something specifically, Marco. That I think
we'll touch into it a bit more. But I do agree that I feel like everybody's just very cool in this movie. Like, and Rocky was always the underdog. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're all like Michael B. Jordan's cool, Tessa Thompson's cool, Jonathan Majors, even though he's like the guy out of prison, he still looks dope as fuck. Like, we need somebody to be a little like not stupid, humbled? But kind of like humbled, I guess. You know, like weird Rocky quotes. Was always that extra bit.
You gotta get the spaghetti. You know what I mean?
I'll tack on that in a bill and spoilers also. I'll tack on spoilers also.
Okay. Well, I think we've talked quite a bit about the film. I don't know if there's really much more that we want to talk about that isn't other part of the spoilers. So let's start with our ratings of the film, and then we'll talk into more depth about it. I'll go with you, Marco. How many stars did you give this film?
Man, I'm still a sucker for this franchise, and it still feels like a part of Rocky to me. So I'm gonna go 4 stars on this one.
Oh, okay. How about you, James?
I give this one a 3.5.
I also gave it a 3.5 out of 5. So, I mean, still, I think worth watching. It's a good entry in the series as a whole and in the Creed trilogy. Just not the strongest of them, but not a bad film. So we're going to jump into spoilers in just a second. If you haven't seen the film yet and you don't want anything ruined for you, there's not too much that we can ruin, but if you want to go in free and clear, go ahead and skip forward a little bit and we'll let you know what we're going to be watching next in our next podcast. Otherwise, stick with us and we'll go into a bit more depth in the spoiler section. Okay, so we're in the spoiler section, and we're going to talk a little bit more. Let's touch back onto what we were leaving last about the emptiness of this film without Rocky. I'm going to go to what you wanted to touch on, James. What was your thought on adding in Rocky into the film?
Okay, so we're in spoilers. So Marianne Creed dies, right? They hint at it really early on with like, oh, you've had strokes, and I knew it was going to happen right when that scene.
Yeah, of course.
A little,
Somebody's
by the way,
gotta
a
go.
little too on the nose, by the way, with that one. I was like, you could have tightened that up a little bit. That was very much
They
like,
could
let's
have.
just tell him, not show him, right?
Yeah, it would. It also would have been great if like they just didn't hint at it, and it just.
That's what
would've
I
come out of
mean.
nowhere.
I was like, yo, like we're smart enough, we can figure this out. Like, oh, she's not doing well. She, like we don't have to like.
Yeah.
Remember the last time? I'm like, oh, cool, events that we've never seen again. Okay. Um. So no, I thought it would have been better if Rocky was in it and he actually just died in this movie and he was the one that dies. Like
Me
that would have been
too.
a more
Yeah.
heartfelt. That would have been
Right.
probably had me crying. Probably tell you the truth at this point. I don't know. I can't trust myself in movies anymore. So, it's just one of those things where I think don't get me wrong. Very sad with where Marianne Creed dies and she thinks she's talking to Apollo and it's very touching. But it was
That part kind of hurt.
it's just one of those things where I think Rocky in this one, but then once again, then you just be like, oh, this is just Rocky 3 all over again, then, right? Like when Mickey dies.
Well,
True,
I mean,
but-
even like at the opening fight, right? It's his last fight. It's before he retires. You would have thought Rocky would have been there for his final fight or something like that. So that could have even been something just to have a little bit of him inside the movie. And then if they
That's
moved
true,
on because he's retired,
Or they could have mentioned him and said, Rocky's dealing with some stuff right now, like not even a mention of him, But
dude, I almost thought when Dame tells him like, "Oh, you learned some new moves," I turned to Janelle. I was like, "Yeah, fucking Rocky trained him."
Yeah,
like,
say
dude,
something.
Are you not aware the most
Exactly.
legendary boxer in this universe trained his ass? Like, yeah, dude, he's not the same fucking kid from 18 years ago. Sorry, dude. Like,
Rocky taught him his shit and his
Italian
other
guys.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
But
that's
James, going back on what you said on how like it would have been similar to Rocky, like all movies have sort of like mirrored the Rocky movies, and it just would have made sense that
I know.
in Rocky 3, Mickey dies, in Creed 3, Rocky dies, to kind of like mirror those two things. It would have been
elevated too, I guess. I get it, but they got issues that are financial, so I mean that's why this is not really in there.
Yeah.
I think in the trailer he mentions Rocky, but that scene is cut from the movie, by the way.
Yeah, that's not in the film at all.
Yeah, he has a press conference where he says, "Oh, I don't have Rocky this time," and then like in the movie, that scene is not in there. By the way, I noticed. I was like, they cut that scene. I know that much. So,
Yep. I wish that would have been in
So-
there, but yeah, makes sense.
yeah, they don't mention him once. I think.
No, not at all. There was no reference. I thought there was a scene that they almost kind of said something about Rocky, like especially even the montage scene. He didn't even reference any of his old tricks. He was coming back to form, and he was just in a straight up regular gym, boxing and training up. Like Rocky, the last film, he was out in the sticks, rolling in like these chains in this fucking desert thing or whatever he was doing. Like
He was doing the
in this
Naruto
film, he's
tree
like, I'm just-
punching, though, bro. He was doing the tree punching.
he was doing the tree punching. Yes.
I was like, dude, at that point, I once again looked at Joe and I said, "Why the fuck is he punching a tree?" So,
Not
that's
where
all.
he was training.
Yeah.
I guess in LA. Marco, there were some other things you wanted to add as well in regards to how this film was playing out near the end? Was anything you wanted to add onto this?
Just a couple things. Not really a spoiler, but still, like I mentioned that these movies sort of mirror, the Rocky franchise, and this was Dame was sort of like an amalgam of quite a few of Rocky's adversaries. He was, an unstoppable force like Drago. He was also like an underdog like Clubber Lang, and he was also kind of like Rocky himself, coming from nothing and trying to build, something of himself and challenging the heavyweight contender, just like Rocky did. I just wish that they would have kind of shown more of that. James had mentioned before that it's everything sort of moves a little bit too fast, and like we see like the rise of like Clubber Lang in part 3, and I know I keep using him as an example, but it's like it's almost kind of similar stories where someone is calling out the champ and antagonizing him and stuff. Like in Rocky 3, we see Clubber Lang's career rise up after he defeats Rocky, and yeah, it would have been.
And he fights a couple more fights, I think, right? I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah.
Mark, I know you've seen it recently. Doesn't he do a few more and then Rocky comes back? I think it's not like the next fucking fight, right?
You see just montages of it. which is fine. Like, yeah, like you see him like
shows
fighting
he's
these
doing
dudes.
stuff. It's been a while, right?
Exactly. And yes, okay, it would have been like a dead copycat or what have you, but it at least we would have seen like, fuck, this guy's really challenging you. He's essentially gonna come after you and challenge your title and tell you your has been also. I just wish we would have had that. It just goes boom boom way too fast. A little bit.
You know what? There's a scene in the trailer too where they're like in a prison. Have you guys remember this in the trailer? And they're like these prisoners are looking down at them. Dude, that scene is not in the fucking movie.
No, I don't recall that. No.
I know what you're talking about, and I think like that was kind of like a bait switch
or something. Yeah, what the fuck? Did he go there? Like,
I think it was
where he was for 18 years.
Because it turns out that he never got pinned again. Donnie didn't. It was only Dame. They switched it in the movie that it was their group home where they were at, where they got beat up. But if only they would have shown like some of that too. Like even in the first Creed, we see his horrible experience in juvie. At the beginning, it's only like the first 5 minutes, but at least we see it.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Just things like that. Also, the second thing I was gonna say is there's a plot point that is never revisited again, and that's Donnie's daughter has a fight at the school, and they have an argument about teaching her different ways on how to fight, and it's not always like physical violence. They never go back to that.
No. They just teach her how to fight.
Don't worry about it, man. She'll figure it out eventually. It's off screen. They'll tell you about it.
Yeah, so those are really like my only real nitpicks, but I think like what he gets the dynamic between Dame and Donnie good, and again the sense of brotherhood and loss of brotherhood, I think he got really well. It's James mentioned that it's sort of like handled pretty quickly at the end, like boom, okay, we're cool again. I wish it just would have left it, slightly more like to the viewer's perspective. Like, are they going to be cool? Or are they not going to be cool?
Leaving a little bit more open ended.
Probably add to that. Yeah.
There was a few things that now that you mention it, Marco, that where there seems to be something that would have been left as a callback but never happens. They never do anything with it. Like there's a scene, I want to say it's Dame's first fight against Pretty Ricky, where he gets his jaw punched really hard, and Dame takes out his mouth guard, and you can see like lots of tooth or something.
Felix, by the way.
Oh, Felix, I'm sorry, by Felix.
Yeah,
and he basically has his tooth out and spits it out to the floor. And I was thinking, is that going to be a callback to when they eventually fight? And there's going to be like, oh, here's his weakness. Like, just like Dame was punching after Felix's arm, but there was never any payback for that. There was just a thing that happened and we moved on from it.
Two things with that. I think that's just showing you that Felix he's legit. He's a legit boxer, actually. And the way that Dame wins is because he's basically cheating. He does a lot of shit, splits open his cheek with his elbow. The punches on the arms, I kept thinking they were going to do more with it too. I was like, oh, does that just like make a dead arm or some shit? But they don't really ever address it. I was like, oh, okay. Kind of weird.
Doesn't break the arm. And when Dame and Donnie do fight, with the exception of, I think, like the first round, there really wasn't any dirty fighting either. Whereas, like, and considering that this is a back-to-back fight, 6 months later, whatever it is, between the two fights, you would think that he'd still have that kind of sense of fighting a little dirtier rather than a bit more cleaner. So that does change a bit too, which I thought that was odd.
He calls him out though.
There's no veracity coming from Dame. Like, he seemed like an unstoppable force. And I kind of, wanted that a little bit more against Donnie. Like, have him be a little like challenging at least the first couple rounds, and have him have like a one up on Donnie a little bit, especially since Donnie been retired 3 years at this point.
No, I think he does. The first round, Dame actually does better, and then the second round, Donnie kind of gets back on it, and then we go into the montage, single shot thing, whatever they do.
Not really even a montage. It's like a fucking in their head, like, oh, and then we see for the first time in their history of the Rocky Creed stuff of like imagery with like the bars and it gets his back. And for me personally, that's what I had an issue was that it jumped straight to round 12 after that. Like lengthen the fight a little bit more, man. We're here to watch a boxing movie, right? And my favorite part of all the Rocky Creed movies is the fucking final fights. And this one was just like, it was like 15 minutes long. It was like super short. I was like, damn, we could have got a little more. Like, dude, when the intro of them walking in is longer than the actual fight, I was like, God damn, really? Like, I was just waiting for it. I was like, come on, man. Like, I get it. But if they showed a little bit more of the fighting and a little bit more of just like how brutal it is, like you said, Marco, show Dame like, like overdoing it over a lot.
It didn't seem as wore down for a 12-round fight, to be honest. Near the end, it didn't seem
not really.
as
In my 12, I was like, damn, I could really watch them for another 30 minutes do this, to tell you the truth.
Or like,
I don't
it would have been great. It would have been great if Donnie had to change like fighting styles, kind of akin to like what Rocky did, where like at first they say they're gonna bulk up Donnie and make him like this pummeling force. It would have been great if they showed that wasn't working, and then he beats him by switching to his dad's form, kind of being more dancing around this guy and just landing these quick jabs at him or something, something to kind of like make Dame that much more of like a force to be reckoned with. So,
I mean, you find like a 37-year-old man too, right?
Yeah.
It's hella funny that like he's old. I was like, dude, I don't know if you guys are aware of like the black Air Force One memes, but like Dame is a guy that'd be wearing some black Air Force Ones. Like, you don't fuck with a guy like that. You got nothing to lose. I'd be like, no, we're good here. Take my money, sir. So.
Well, so speaking of how this film ended and everything, and obviously it seems like they've freed themselves of the burden of Rocky, I guess. Would you guys want to see a Creed 4? Is this something you think is going to actually transition into more Rocky or Creed films, I guess? Or are you fine with ending things here? I'll take that to you, James.
I think they kind of make it a send-off at the end. But I would say that from the comments from Michael B. Jordan, they might be planning more movies from the sound of it, which I don't really know how that would work at this point, because they're already making it sound like he just comes back for this fight. But then once again, it's funny because like when they're like, he's so old fighting, I was like, didn't Rocky fight when he was like 67 years old in Rocky Balboa for an exhibition match? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Or are they going to go like Rocky 5 with it, where he's like running a restaurant or some shit and he's just doing street fights against Tommy the Machine Gun? Underrated
Tommy Gun.
And he's just doing like leg sweeps and shit now. He's like, we want to fight in the streets, we'll find the streets. But I don't know how they'd go, but I mean, they got a pretty interesting like crew that's been writing these up. So I'd be open to it, but I wouldn't be shocked if this was like the cap to it all. To tell you the truth. So,
well, we live in an era with like 20, 30 comic book movies. I'd be okay if they did another one, man. Truthfully.
Yeah.
I mean, if they find a way to
maybe
write
another
it,
spinoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, with his daughter. I mean, obviously they set it up where his daughter starts to learn how to fight.
Not that. No, that wouldn't.
No.
No. What do you?
I'm going to push it up to the future 20 years and have her start boxing.
There was a rumor that there was a rumor at where Drago could have a spinoff. The son.
Yeah, really?
I could see that, I guess. I don't know if Drago's character is as interesting as Creed, but
Well, I mean,
I feel like we had a lot of that already in the last one too.
Yeah, they kind of handled all that in the last film.
That's true.
It's kind of cool. By the way, I will mention it's kind of cool that he showed up to be like, "I'm good to help you now." So
yeah, they're friends. I was like, "Your dad killed my dad," but it's cool. What else?
It's cool, man. You guys got murderers in your family and shit, but it's not a big deal. Rocky should on the fucking towel, but it's fine.
Any other final thoughts for this film, guys? Anything else we want to add that we just didn't get a chance to mention?
Yeah, criticisms aside and nitpicks aside, I still enjoyed the movie. I had a great time. Watch it. Definitely watch it with a theater that has like, watch it IMAX or JBX or, whatever upgrade your movie theater, may have, because it'll make the fight scenes that much more interesting.
Yeah, definitely IMAX, because it was shot with an IMAX camera for the fight scene. So if you do that, it does change the aspect ratio, which is nice. It's quite
Get all the effects of the gut punch where he heaves over and
that's
you
an
can
anime
see the
shot.
wind.
That's straight from a shot. That's straight from anime.
Yeah,
I was
it
like,
is.
there's the anime shot.
He
said he added it in. Which shot is it? Oh, where he does the yeah. All right, guys. So that is the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening. Marco, let them know how they can reach us.
Listen and follow us on your favorite podcast service. We are on all of them. Trust us. For a quick link to all our social visits, check us out at linktree/moviepalspod. Thank you, and make sure to smash that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.
Make sure also to stay tuned for our next episode, number 146, where we will be reviewing some of the Oscar-nominated films and what the results are for that, as well as our review of Scream 6.
Thank you, Nabil. I'm really looking forward to talking that one through. Nabil will not be on the next podcast, though. We will have Michael Parkham, practically our fourth real host here. He will just be filling
Fourth
in
Potter.
for that review.
And we cannot disclose where Nabil's going to be either. Sorry.
No.
Don't ask us.
Just don't watch the news this weekend.
Yeah, he's taking Scream 6 to a whole new level. That's all I'm going to tell you. All right, until next time, this is James.
And Marco.
And Nabil.
Have a great one.